Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and I'm here to do a little speculating today. Ever since it was announced that Godzilla and King Kong would have their long overdue rematch in the fourth entry of the MonsterVerse, there's been a lot of speculation as to how it will play out. Fans have been wondering things like, how will Godzilla and Kong come into conflict, and who will be that definitive winner which Adam Wingard promised us? I myself did some spitballing back when Kong Skull Island was first released that perhaps the plot would somehow involve Godzilla and potentially Rodan and Mothra being lured by Monarch to Skull Island, thereby setting up Skull Island as Monster Island for the future of the series, and Kong would obviously be taking umbrage with that. Of course, that was before we knew anything about Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019. Since then, we've gotten some new details, and combining that with what we know based on the first two MonsterVerse movies, those being Godzilla 2014 and Kong Skull Island, I've come up with a potential scenario for Godzilla vs. Kong. Now bear in mind going forward, I'm not saying this is definitely how it will play out, or even how it should play out. I'm just saying that based on what we know, this is how I would have written it. Of course, if this video winds up disappearing because either Legendary or Warner Brothers told me to get rid of it, then we might be onto something, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So what do we know about the MonsterVerse so far? We know that both Godzilla and Kong are the quote-unquote good guys. They're not heroes per se, but they are definitely the ones we're supposed to be rooting for. We also know that they both have similar roles in the environment, which is to protect the natural order. The main difference is that Kong's focus is on Skull Island, whereas Godzilla's focus appears to be the entire world. We know that there is a terrorist organization which will appear in King of the Monsters 2019 that wants to weaponize the monsters, being called the Titans, to get, well, whatever they want to gain. We know that King of the Monsters will introduce a bioacoustic technology that will potentially allow for communication and perhaps control over the monsters. Incidentally, I think this is being blown out of proportion by a lot of people. When they say communication and control, I'm pretty sure it will extend to a little more than just signaling them to draw them somewhere or perhaps agitating them into being more aggressive. I don't think we're looking at Exilian Godzilla vs. Monster Zero levels of control. And of course, we know that Godzilla vs. Kong will have a definitive winner. Adam Wingard has said as much, and okay, it's possible he's lying, but at the moment he says that there will be a definitive victor in Godzilla vs. Kong. So with all of that in mind, this is my potential scenario for how Godzilla vs. Kong could play out. And remember, this is just how I would have written it if I had been in charge. So, I think it's safe to say that at the end of Godzilla King of the Monsters, not only will Godzilla have established himself as the most powerful monster in existence, but the human terrorists will also have most likely been defeated for the most part. Most of them will probably be in custody or perhaps killed, but a few of them will escape to plan their revenge. What is that revenge? Well, thanks to their actions in King of the Monsters, they have two things to work with. First, they would have one of those bioacoustic devices still in their possession. And second, they would have the location of Skull Island. See, this is one of the reasons why I'm not entirely convinced Skull Island is on the Monarch Sciences globe, because in this scenario, Skull Island's location would be kept a secret by Monarch so as to prevent the location from being exploited, like they say at the end of the film. But the terrorists succeeded in extracting that information, so with the last bioacoustic device and a lot of ingenuity, they lure Kong into a trap, capture him, and then deposit him on the mainland. Where they deposit him isn't necessarily that big of a deal. What's important is that, well, we all know what happens when King Kong is taken off of Skull Island. We know that Kong is not malicious, but he is lost, confused, and wants to go home, so he starts trying to figure out where he is. This will almost certainly lead to a military response, and thus Kong, perhaps further agitated by signals from that bioacoustic device, will go on a rampage. That is what draws the attention of Godzilla. Normally, Godzilla would have no reason to bother with Kong, but the eighth wonder of the world currently isn't where he should be, meaning he's upsetting the natural order which Godzilla maintains. As such, Godzilla returns to the mainland to do the job he always does. In this way, the terrorists have forced Monarch into a terrible situation. When Godzilla and Kong clash, not only will there be widespread destruction, but one of them is almost certain to kill the other, assuming they aren't able to kill each other simultaneously. Monarch, however, doesn't want either Godzilla or Kong to die because they're both necessary to maintaining the natural order. Even losing one of them could spell disaster for the fate of the world. Ergo, the human side of the plot would involve the agents of Monarch finishing off the terrorists once and for all, while simultaneously trying to figure out how to separate Godzilla and Kong before a worst-case scenario happens. I personally think that would be a good direction to go. On the one hand, it puts a new spin on the classic story of King Kong. On the other hand, it gives Godzilla and Kong a reason to fight without turning either of them into the villains. But let's not forget, we were also promised a definitive winner. So in this scenario I've concocted, who would win? Well, if you don't know, that means you're probably a new subscriber. I was one of the first, if not the first, to declare Team Godzilla all the way. So obviously Godzilla would win in this scenario, but if you're a King Kong fan, don't get too upset just yet. Hear me out for the full resolution. For the ending of this scenario, Kong puts up a valiant fight, but ultimately he's just not powerful enough to overcome Godzilla. The king of the monsters thrashes the eighth wonder of the world, but before he can deliver the final blow, the two are separated. Monarch, in a callback to the end of Godzilla 2014, places the bioacoustic device on an unmanned vessel and programs its autopilot to just go out to sea. The signal is set to lure Godzilla, and it works. Godzilla doesn't finish off Kong and follows the ship. Kong is alive, but he's in bad shape, and he can't stay on the mainland without the risk of Godzilla coming back. So Kong is loaded onto the deck of a decommissioned aircraft carrier, pulled along by a little tugboat, and the Monarch scientists treat him as much as they can as he's towed back to Skull Island. Now, because of that perpetual storm, they obviously can't get too close, so the aircraft carrier is released and allowed to drift through the storm to Skull Island shores. The tugboat pulls away, and as Kong's makeshift raft disappears into the clouds, we see Godzilla's dorsal fins break the surface as he swims after him. Cut to black. Now once again, I have to emphasize I am not saying that this is what will happen in the movie. I have no inside sources to confirm this. If it does turn out to be what happens, I will be as shocked as you guys. I'm simply putting this out there because I figure everyone else is speculating, I may as well too. And this is how I, as a writer, would use all of those writing prompts. And now that I've said my piece, you're free to leave your own speculations as well as thoughts on the scenario I've just presented in the comments section below. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.